everyone. We're starting broadcasting right now. We have 0 viewers.
Perfect.
We'll see if anyone joins.
I think I dropped something in the Riot chat, but
Okay, 3 viewers. Yay.
hey.
Okay. What is let's start with a little bit of an update on Game of Stakes. We're going to answer questions in the in Riot chat and if people also at me in the Telegram, I'll probably see them.
And if you're on our Slack and you have me in the Slack, I'll see those as well. So a number of ways to reach us.
Absolutely. So here's where we are at. So there's been a lot of drama in Game of Stakes land and a lot of excitement, and some progress and some tripping over our own feet. So let's just kind of get started with where we're at and what we're thinking. So you've all probably seen the blog post from Certus One about the cartel, the blog post from Bitfish responding about their sort of intentions / the nature of the cartel. Kind of had a little bit of a back and forth. We successfully launched Game of Stakes 5 this morning, but we've been seeing bugs related to the vesting feature, which was one of the features that we were testing. So let's just kind of I'll probably talk about the software, the state of the software first, and then we could talk about the politics of removing cartels.
Yeah, that is the meatier and more fun piece of it. So let's do the no fun stuff first.
Okay, the no fun stuff is, so we have this vesting feature that we are trying to land in Game of Stakes. And what vesting is the ability to have coins that you cannot transfer, but can stake and earn fees and inflationary rewards on it. In the launch, for the launch of the hub, there's going to be about 40 accounts that are going to have some atoms that are going to be locked up by this vesting feature. But one of the things that we think is really cool about the vesting feature is that it's a pretty powerful feature when you're thinking about economic incentivization, when you're getting new networks off the ground, either via forks of the atom distribution, or because you can do things like lock a bunch of accounts investing, launch a bunch of coins investing, making it very difficult to, significantly more difficult to sell those coins. Set, a fast period of inflation. And then basically anyone who shows up and delegates gets to participate in your network and stakes, and people who ignore your network get inflated to to low value. These are the kinds of use cases that I think that vesting enables, and why I think vesting is a particularly important feature for the network. So one of the things that we've been testing in Game of Stakes 5 is the vesting feature, which was not tested in Gaia 10K because vesting is only enabled can only be enabled at Genesis in its current form. So given all of that, we've been testing the vesting feature, and it looks like we caught a bug that made it through our testing, that surfaces under particular circumstances when you're operating in a multi-coin scenario like we are in Game of Stakes, where people have both stake and Photinos. So it looks like we're so I've been testing a fix, and it looks like that fix is consensus breaking. So we are probably going to have to do a reset, which is going to bring back all of the politics around what we should do about the Bitfish cartel. Now that we're sort of publicly discussing the cartel. And it also brings back the thorny issue about what to do with the fact that Chinese New Year is this week, and our Chinese community members and Chinese Game of Stakes participants are pretty much on holiday for the entire week. So both of these are tricky issues. The only other thing that might be relevant, and do you have any comments on the bug that we found, Jack?
No, not really. I mean, we did have pretty significant testing go into vesting, both manual as well as automated. It just kind of looking through the different where we're testing this in the integration tests versus unit tests. Like this is just a little missed piece of coverage. So we'll be sure to rectify that and ensure test coverage on this piece. The one nice thing is that the chain is still making progress, which is pretty cool. I think it's just a couple of different transaction types that are affected. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a couple of different transaction types that are affected. It has to do with the way in which we check the whether or not there basically are enough coins to be sent to either be sent or to be spent as. So like the things that you need unvested unvested coins for are either sends or paying fees. And the function that checks whether or not you have enough unvested coins to either send the coins or pay the fees is what's broken in the multi-coin scenario. And so there's a pretty simple fix. I'm going to open up pull requests for them, both off of the 0.30 branch and off of develop pretty quickly. But what we're going, and like we could have a release, ASAP on them on that fix, but it runs into the Chinese New Year question.
So on that note, do we want to start talking cartels?
Yeah, let's talk cartels.
My Friday was super exciting. I was very excited to see that the validator community had kind of worked together to identify the cartel. It's something we had been talking about internally for a little while because it's something we noticed a bit earlier, but and exciting to see them kind of do something about it. And then also today, seeing the Bitfish response this morning, I thought was excellent as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still sort of processing what I think about the Bitfish response. First of all, I don't want to really accuse anyone in this game of cheating. Cheating is not really something that I would say that I wanted, and we definitely wanted cartels to exist in Game of Stakes, but we also fully acknowledge that like part of the response to a cartel in any Tendermint blockchain is going to be forking them out.
Yep.
That is one of the things that is really has been criticized about the proof of work setting or the BFT setting, and the what has been critical about to the BFT setting is one of the criticisms of the BFT setting is that you can end up in these situations where you have cartel controlled blockchains and there is no sort of, there's no recovery mechanism in the consensus. If, in a proof of work blockchain, you can have a 51% attacker, but if more people decide to hash on the chain, people decide to point their hash power at different mining pools, there is a recovery mechanism from a cartel takeover of a blockchain. Whereas in BFT proof of stake, once the cartel controls the blockchain, the cartel can control who does it. And the fundamental countermeasure that we think that there is to this is forking the blockchain.
Which is exactly what our validators have done.
Exactly what our validators have done.
Yep.
And so we view this as part of the Game of Stakes competition. this this process of vying for dominance, of forking people out, is definitely something that is, and reading the tea leaves on social consensus around whether or not the fork was legitimate is sort of part of my job in terms of judging Game of Stakes. So I think all of those things are elements in it. Obviously, we've seen the signs of a large number of our machines, of our validator power, being centrally coordinated. For the reason why we've been seeing our those signs include all of the things that were in the Certus One blog post. Seeing a large number of sort of previously unknown registrations from Thailand during the KYC process, seeing a huge number of nodes come online at the same time, and a huge number of nodes go offline within actually a second of each other during the chain halt that we saw during the resource exhaustion attack. So all of those things were like clear signs of central coordination of a large number of validators. Whether or not you think that amount of central coordination is inside the rules, not inside the rules, super interesting question. And ultimately, I'm going to have to make a decision about what recommendations I make to the ICF about how they're going to allocate tokens to the winners, but also this is part of the game.
Yeah, I mean, in order to execute some of the attacks that we were hoping to see during Game of Stakes, you do need a 35% cartel, or some substantial amount of voting power on the chain. So this was one of the things I think we were hoping to see, and see how it would play out in a real world scenario during the competition. So I mean, for me personally, it was kind of exciting. Also, both the validators, the Certus One folks, and the rest of the folks in the validator community who were forking, I thought did an excellent job of communicating and working together on that. Also, on the other side, the Bitfish folks have contributed significantly to the validator community in terms of tooling and other open source software, and providing their expertise to the community. So cool to see really talented operators on both sides, for me personally.
Yeah, I don't think there's any outcome here where we are where what we are discussing is a disqualification of Bitfish. That should be pretty clear to everyone. Like I said, I think everyone is sort of participating within the rounds of the game. Yeah. Fry is asking whether or not we are going to give a prize to Bitfish, and I definitely do think Bitfish has earned a place among the recommended winners in Game of Stakes, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I think Fry's comments there kind of go to the core of like what's going on here. It's like, yes, it kind of seems like bad practice and potentially against the rules. They're kind of skirting the edges of a couple of things, but they showed themselves to be top validators, and we definitely want them as part of the validator community. So kind of in the spirit of this game, it'll be interesting to see what the community ends up thinking here.
Yep. I mean, really the fundamental intention of Game of Stakes the Game of Stakes intention were a couple of things. One piece was to really battle test the software, but also really solve the problem that is inherent to doing this, which is there is a mismatch between the people who are the most. There's sometimes, in some places there's great overlap between fundraiser participants and qualified validators. There are some fundraiser participants who have been doing an amazing job of operating validators, and that seems to be growing. And I'm really excited about that. We've really started to see some of the crypto funds show up in our validator community in a big way. all of that stuff is really exciting. But there are also people who are in the validator community that weren't fundraiser participants, but are building businesses on top of Cosmos. And we want them to at least be able to, open up a storefront and be like, we are here for delegation from, block 0, and making sure that happens. And we're definitely not going to gate Bitfish out, because they definitely have been, they definitely were playing the game, and they definitely deserve to be a candidate for delegation when the mainnet launches.
Also, not easy or cheap running that many servers on DO.
Not at all. Yeah.
Let me go ahead and tell you, would have loved to have seen what their monitoring dashboards looked like during that transaction spam attack. I bet that was some fun scrambling around.
Yep. Yeah. No, coordinating that many machines, not easy. But yeah, for those of us, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're for the people in the Game of Stakes chat who are accusing them of cheating, like, I don't know, their OPSEC wasn't really that good. Like,
yeah, it was pretty easy to figure out.
It was pretty obvious to us from day one that this was a pretty centrally controlled group, and that was going to be a factor in the reward delegation. But also, we really wanted we wanted this to play out in the open, and that's a big factor here.
Yeah, to kind of figure out what the risk is on mainnet for things like transaction censorship attacks and some of these other cartel things that would be enabled by large voting blocks. So we wanted to see some of that in the wild, and having the cartel form, I think, enabled that.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the whole, this is continuing to go well. Now, do you want to talk about when we're going to push Game of Stakes 6?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we should probably chat with the folks in the Chinese validator community and see when they're able to come back.
I mean, I think their consensus is pretty much they all want us to
push forward.
Probably wait at least a week till Friday. Yeah, it's pretty painful in terms of hitting our target of 2 weeks of Game of Stakes stability before launch.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see what we do. My point of view is what I'm thinking right now, just sort of live, is what I'm thinking right now live is that we probably want to run a Gaia 11,000 testnet, probably some ASAP. Something like this week with vested coins in it, and with vested coins, and we can leverage all of the code that we wrote for adding vesting, or all of the experience that we've built up adding vesting to the Genesis files, and spin up a Gaia 11K testnet to get some more testing and experience with it. And then the question really is how do we think about how this affects launch, whether or not we shorten Game of Stakes, so we can be done with the Game of Stakes portion of this and really start working out the last logistical details for launching the mainnet.
Yeah, that sounds good. Also, a good way to ensure that everyone gets included here. That would be like a release probably tomorrow or early Monday, which we can definitely get
out. Pooch is asking how much does it cost to run a serious validator? I know exactly how much it costs to run a serious validator. Running my occlusion comes right out of my bank account.
Yeah, and I've personally costed it out on a couple of different cloud platforms. Zaki is running some bare metal, which is a whole different ball of wax. But I was looking at a couple of auto scaling centuries with validator behind it. I mean, you're quickly getting on the order of thousands of dollars a month. So yes, we are very well aware of how expensive that is.
The point of Game of Stakes was not really to pay these costs, because ultimately, the ICF should not be in the position of paying validators. That completely screws up the incentive construction of the network. So we are in order for the network to be healthy, validators need to be sufficiently entrepreneurial to figure out how to turn this into a viable business. And I think Certus One has been talking about this, about how they've been going about it. Selling services to various organizations that are building staking operations. Bitfish also talked about their staking as a service operation and why they've been investing so much money. Occlusion has plans of its own, and it's really critical to this. Really, what we were trying to do is two things. One is, it's more likely that you're going to make money from not the game of stakes winning, but from who the ICF and other large atom holders choose to delegate to, seeing who has been active on this network. But like the thing that we wanted is that would be entirely blocked if you had 0 atoms to start out with, because you would not be able to do a Genesis transaction and participate in the mainnet launch. And by doing this distribution of atoms through the game of stakes mechanism, we're going to be able to do that. But if we're going to hit a February launch, which I think we're really strongly committed to, and the software feels roughly ready for, and we're feeling pretty excited about, we need some time between the end of game of stakes to do all of this logistical stuff to get a clean network start and everything moving. So this is all factoring into sort of running the math.
Yep.
Yep. So that's the nature of the beast right now. Let's see. Is there anything else? As we've started talking about, so the other thing I'm just gonna advertise is that we are ready to start talking a lot more about IBC. And the way I imagine that the IBC situation is going to go is going to be, using what we learned about deploying the proof of stake features to deploying the IBC features, which is, all of the best practices that we've learned from this experience, which is, having these regular video updates, starting to, educate the validator and developer community about what we're planning with IBC, having the implementation work going on in parallel, having sort of minimal versions land in test nets, and then eventually having building experience in the test nets, and then do a hub upgrade in order to support IBC. That's the battle plan for IBC and roughly how we're planning on doing it. And I think the number of sort of stakeholders or participants who are going to be interested in IBC is obviously going to be even larger than the number of people who are interested in sort of the proof of stake and validation side of things, because the IBC mechanism is truly permissionless and is available to be picked up by anyone.
Yeah, I mean, you could implement IBC on a Polkadot chain just as easily, or through Ethereum contracts.
Maybe. Actually, it's looking more plausible to do it. I just saw this crazy thing where you can generate generate solidity code for deserializing protobufs in EVM. So yeah, it seems
that's pretty cool.
Going to be a thing.
Nice. IrisNet has been working a lot on IBC. Will you be working more closely with them? We do work closely with IrisNet already, and especially during the IBC implementation period. I'd imagine that's a collaboration that will grow.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty good bet that the first IBC connection is going to be between the IrisNet and the hub. And the first test nets will be between an Iris testnet and the hub. But we really would like to get this to a permissionless state, where it's not Like, it would be a pretty suboptimal output if like we have to like have governance or a software update every time we want to introduce an IBC connection. I think the permissionless end state is really worth aspiring towards.
Yeah. And one thing I would say about the procedure that Zaki just outlined as far as testing and upgrades, essentially once we have mainnet, that's going to be on top of what we already have now. So when we get to a situation like we have been where we get these stable networks, only once the network has been stable for a while would that get pushed to the mainnet. And software releases would be, 6 weeks to a couple months likely before they make it to the full upgrade. So.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we could also start up like a semi-production ready test hub pretty quickly.
I mean, I think that migrating from this sort of series of testnets we have to a sort of a stable Robson-like testnet or another similar testnet like Bitcoin has with their testnets, I think that's likely what this testnet program will become. And folks won't have to run their full strength validators on there. We can just spin up some cloud machines and
but it'll be
make it a little easier.
There'll be a Gaia series with IBC enabled and various forms of like where the security isn't fully fleshed out, because the security considerations around IBC are considerable. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
There is this question about what if Chinese New Year starts on the 5th, why not have a reset on the 4th? I mean, what I've heard in terms of being only modestly familiar with Chinese New Year as a holiday is that is that most people are at home right now. Their families are all traveling to get together. It's becoming harder and harder to spend time on Game of Stakes over this, and Chinese New Year is a population of is a sixth of the world's population is celebrating it. So it should definitely be a factor in sort of how we play out Game of Stakes. As I've been feeling a little bit more confident about our testing procedures, I've been feeling, and this bug that made it through for reasons that are pretty well understood, that we don't have multi-coin unit tests for vesting. So it didn't really change my confidence level in the software in any pretty significant way. So, maybe that leans in favor of a shorter end game for Game of Stakes.
Yeah, I agree. I personally, when I saw this bug, thought we had gotten it tested in the CLI integration tests, but it's because we don't have the type of vesting account in there that we were running in Game of Stakes. So, it's a very.
I think when you were testing it, and I think when you were manually testing, you were probably manually testing a single coin network.
I had a 2-coin network, but no fees set. Yep.
Yeah, and you only tested the staking, but not the transfers. That's why you didn't catch it.
Yes, that's accurate.
Perfect. See, I'll explain.
All right, Zaki. Well, good chat, and I believe we'll have more updates in the coming days as far as what we're going to do vis-a-vis Chinese New Year and the point release. So,
I think we're going to do. We should get a Gaia release out though on pretty quickly. A new Genesis block for Gaia 11K. We'll talk about that offline.
Yeah, I was going to say let's think on that offline.
Yep.
All right, Zaki.
Bye, guys.
Catch you soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and we'll do another one of these soon. Later.